What's up, everyone? Welcome back to some more The Shell Part 1 Inferno. In the previous recording session, we reached a game over. Alright, I thought it was a decent ending, but apparently it was, after looking through our guide, we realized I was only about halfway through the actual game. There's still plenty more to see. And first and foremost, I gotta get a normal ending before I can see the true ending. So, you know, we still got quite a bit of a ride to go. So yeah, we got the game over, came back, started going through it again. So far, not much has changed except that we piped down Kyoko. That was the last thing we did before I ended the last recording session. But so far, that's the only part that's been really different. I mean, obviously the story progressed past where, I had my game over, but like outside of that, things have been progressing fairly normally for Reiji. Or I think Uozumi did come to him about something. Said like, hey, there's some new case, just in case, keep an eye out, bud. Something like that. What had happened? I'm trying to remember like what the exact like murder scene was. Because there was another murder, and obviously Uozumi knew about it. I don't remember. I'm sure we'll fucking remember it soon enough. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump back into it. Here we are with Reiji, just mere moments after piping down Kyoko like a real Chad. I was dragging on a cigarette in my room after enjoying a nice hot dinner and bath. My mind raced back through the day's events. Everyone had their weaknesses, but we all went about our lives while hiding them. The only difference was how we chose to do it. Some soaked their words in lies, others acted tougher than they really were, and yet others pretended to be cheerful. But in that case, how did I go about hiding my own? By forgetting, maybe? I felt I could keep going on, albeit just barely, by striking my weak side from my memories. Though it was really hard to get back into that mindset as soon as I did remember the past. Maybe there was already no going back from the moment my mind drifted down this train of thought. I glanced out the window. The Yoshino cherries in the yard were blooming. Spring already, huh? And so I prayed that my days would know peace for as long as possible. And literally it's gonna be the next day, right? I was like, alright, Reiji, got a new case for you, bud. I strolled down sidewalks dyed in the florid hues of cherry blossoms with Yukari.
それにしても、なぜ俺まで付き合わされるんだ?
兄さんは手伝ってくれたじゃありませんか。
Oh yeah, we did do the Easter thing, didn't we? That's right, we dyed eggs with the art class. And Ayama was there too. Yukari said that with a grin.
せっかくの復活祭なのですから楽しまなくては損ですよ。
復活祭だって、結局のところ何をするんだ?
I knew the basic traditions, but not much concerning what they involved.
お祈りですよ。それとイースターエッグですね。
ああ、この間作っていたな。
あの卵を隠してそれを見つけ出すんです。本当は子供の遊びなのですけれど。
それを学院内でやるのか?
ええ、参加者全員で探すんです。
俺は見ているだけにするよ。
The campus was as quiet as ever. It seemed there were fewer students than usual. That must have meant participation was mandatory.
おや、時坂さんではありませんか。
あ、教頭先生、どうもお邪魔しています。
I exchanged pleasantries with Saiki after he emerged from the staff room.
いえいえ、構いませんよ。ぜひ楽しんでいってください。
As a matter of fact, I do mind you being here. Please, get out. Saiki smiled meekly, then headed down the hallway.
兄さん、美術室で準備をしますから参りましょう。
Always the art room. I'm sure Toko will be happy to see me. As it turned out, we weren't the first ones there.
あ、先生だ。
Yo!
やっと木坂先生。
Ochiko.
なんだ、お前たちもいたのか。
先生がいるより珍しくないよ。残念ながらトーコは休みだけれどね。
Oh, really? She's the one I expected to see here. And be all pissy that I was here.
水原さんが体調不良らしいよ。季節の変わり目だからね。
そうだな。
though she seemed fine for today. Oh, that's another thing I'd totally forgotten about. Reiji went on a trip with Toko here. They went to a different art museum that was like way further away and like spent a couple days away from home. And they like shacked up in a hotel. They ain't do nothing, but like they got a little friendly. But not like, innuendo kind of, hey, friendly, but like
分かっているさ。
Toko smiled and nodded before rising from her chair.
全員揃ったことだし、準備を始めようか。そうですね。兄さんはどうしますか？
どうするとは？
どなたかを手伝ってもいいし、待っていてもらっても構いませんよ。
Wow, so many options. I think I'll go ahead and help little sis out. I feel guilty if I came all this way only to ditch them.
ゆかりは何をするんだ？
私は先日作ったイースターエッグを教室へ運びます。
そのくらいだったら俺が持ってやるよ。
台車もあるから心配いりませんが、では頼んでもよろしいですか？
ああ、任せとけ。
Ew, don't phrase it like that. I pushed a cart loaded with multicolored eggs down the hallway. The students shot me funny looks, but none of them even bothered saying anything to me, as per usual. The hallways were decorated fairly modestly. I saw a cart full of similar crates approach me from the opposite end. Seemed everyone was working hard. Our two carts crossed paths in the center of the hallway. The other was loaded with ordinary eggs. Those were probably for everyone to eat. I brought the eggs into the designated classroom. There, that should do it. However, I found a crowd forming down the hallway when I went back out. A ruckus at Oba Girls Academy sure wasn't something you saw every day. You could only imagine something big had happened. Further complicating matters was the sight of a student slumped in the middle of the hallway.
何があった？
I nudged my way through the crowd. Toko?
なんだ？
Ew.
これは。
Wait, let me get rid of Is that like black goop? Or no, are those like raw, like actual like fertilized eggs? They got little like fucking chicken carcasses in them or some shit? Eggs, broken and intact, were littered across the floor. However, what leaked out of their cracked shells wasn't yolk, but meat. Ugh. Tochiko stood completely rooted to the spot next to them.
下がっていろ。続こ
First order of business was to figure out what had happened. Broken eggshells and chunks of meat were scattered all over the
う。
floor.
帰りかけの日な。
Ooh.
というわけで
See,
は
that's
なさそう。
I was thinking they were like fertilized. No, those. How the hell did that happen? How? Regardless of what kind of symbolism they're trying to evoke here, how the hell did whoever do this get like raw meat up inside an egg and somehow reseal an egg? Is that a thing? Can you do that? The chunks of meat were clearly too big for that. They must have been rotten, for they exuded a foul odor that permeated the air. Furthermore, there wasn't much blood. As I looked around, I spotted something in the chunks of meat.
続こう。職員室へ行って教頭先生に警察を呼ぶように伝えてくれ。
Suzuko snapped out of her daze and trudged down the stairs.
たく。誰がこんな悪趣味なことを。
I stared at the obviously human finger I'd found amidst the sea of flesh. A few seconds later, I picked up one of the unbroken eggs using my handkerchief. It felt rather heavy. Didn't remember exactly how much a normal egg weighed, but I still knew this was nowhere near that. Don't tell me there are more in there. I studied the egg's surface, but it just looked like any ordinary egg. Psyche came sprinting up the stairs.
時坂先生、これは。
警察に連絡はしましたか？
ええ、すぐに来てくださるようです。
わかりました。まずは学生を全員教室へ入れてください。
そうですね。
The students filed into the classrooms on Psyche's orders. Not even they could hide the unrest they felt upon witnessing such horrors. The air vibrated with a bizarrely hushed din of voices, speaking volumes of the ordinary, impassive student body's pandemonium.
時坂さん、
赤崎先生、あなたもこれは見ない方がいい。
Nene was staring at the floor, a look of terror in her eyes. She must have heard the ruckus and come up to take a look.
今、よそ宮さんが知らせてくれたのよ。
おそらく人の体の一部だと思われます。
How
信じられ
though?
ないことに
How?
卵の中に詰められていた
Like
よう
these are those mass marketed like plastic Easter eggs that you could sell at like a bundle at Walmart or some shit. Sure, but this is the 1950s where that really ain't a thing. You know, these are actual genuine eggs. How did you stuff parts into an egg? How does that happen? Unless it's not actual egg. Like it's some other kind of material and like it was placed into a mold of some kind. Even then, like, how? I said that loud enough so Psyche would hear as well.
なぜこんなことが。
わかりません。
Like, listen, why would someone do this? That's a great question. My big question is how? How would someone do this? How are you gonna put something in an egg like this? I know there's ways of like using syringes to put like liquids into an egg to like get around it that way. How are you gonna put whole ass like fingers and other body parts into an egg and have the egg remain intact? Because the eggs were all intact until they fell on the ground. They were intact. How?
でもあの事件はもう終わったはずでは。
ええ、そうでしょう。学内にだって行方不明になっている学生などいませんよね。
今日休んでいる学生はいますが、一応確認してみます。
ええ、お願いします。
Oh no, did Toko get chopped up? And to think of it, Toko wasn't present either. Not that I thought this was her, but you never knew.
教頭先生、この卵を納入した業者はわかりますね。
わかりました。
Psyche and Nene departed down the hallway. Thus I was left all alone in this bizarre hellscape. The stench of decay hung in the air like mist. The chunks of meat didn't look all that fresh. They'd been rotting for several days at the least. I saw Toko and Ueno a mere 2 days ago, meaning this definitely wasn't her. Suddenly I recalled the newspaper article from a few days prior. Scraps of flesh believed human in origin found scattered in various locations. And then there was what Ozmi told me just yesterday.
またバラバラか。
Sitting around wasn't doing my sanity any favors. So I decided to get some rest and let the police handle all this. I returned to the history prep room after leaving the police to investigate. Even though I no longer belonged there, I still found it tranquilizing after all the time I'd spent in that room. One of the cops questioned me, of course, but it seemed he already knew me due to my work on the serial killing case last month. Thanks to that, I wasn't treated as a suspect, which allowed me to rest in peace here. Probably wouldn't be long until Ozmi was informed of this incident. Great. Involved in another brutal case right away. Just what the doctor ordered.
少々よろしいですか。
Psyche peeked inside through the open doorway.
ええ、もちろんです。すみません。この部屋を勝手に使ってしまって。
構いませんよ。これからもどうぞお使いになってください。
え、これからもとは？
このような事件がまた起こってしまい、学生の間でも動揺が広がっています。
ですが、今回のはたまたま現場が学内だっただけで。
I mean, there was no point to me staying, in theory anyway.
正直なところ、警察の方が学内に入られると、父母の会が良い顔をしないのですよ。
とはいえ。
お願いします、時坂さん。我々も不安なのです。このような事態にどう対応すればいいのか。
Psyche bowed his head.
仕方ありませんね。また何かあった時にはと。おや、
よろしいのですか。
どうせ乗りかかった船です。
お忙しいでしょうに申し訳ありません。いえ。
No, probably wasn't the best time to mention I hadn't gotten any new work since the last case.
そういえば、水原さんとは連絡が取れましたか？
Who's Mizuhara? Is that Toko?
ああ、赤崎先生が電話をしてくださいました。
Yeah, I think that's Toko.
そうですか。
水原さんの家は父親がおられませんからね。母親一人で苦労されているようです。
そうなんですか。そういえば、この前美術館の前で喧嘩をしていたようでしたけれど。
あまり親子仲がうまくいっていないようですね。
Psyche sighed. Maybe paying Toko a visit would be a good opportunity to check in on her family situation.
そうだ。もう一つお聞きしたいことがあったんでした。先生は 間宮心臓という画家をご存知ですか？
Gotta had mentioned Psyche might know a thing or two about him.
ええ、人並みの知識でしかありませんが、それがどうかなさいましたか？
ええ、以前美術館で見た絵が気になっていたもので。すみません、今は関係のない話でしたね。
いえ、構いませんが、私はこれで失礼します。それでは時坂先生、今後ともぜひ。
あ、いえ、こちらこそ。
Psyche bowed deeply before leaving the prep room. Since there was nothing I could do at the crime scene for the time being, I decided to head to the infirmary to have a talk with Nene. I happened across Tojiko in front of the infirmary.
あ、先生。
どうしたトジコ？まだ教室で待機しているんじゃないのか？
あ、うん。今から戻るとこだよ。それじゃね。
Tojiko dragged herself up the stairs. She been in the infirmary or something?
失礼します。
お疲れ様です、時坂先生。
Nene sounded considerably calmer than before.
あれ、先生って。
佐伯教頭に聞いたわよ。またしばらく通うことになるよね。
今回の件は学院とのつながりはないと睨んでいますけどね。
じゃあ随分と楽なお仕事じゃないかしら。若い子とも一緒にいられるしね。
Ma'am, I ain't about that.
そんなわけないじゃないですか。
あら、美術部の学生とは随分と仲がよろしいようでしたけれ
Because
ど。
that's where my sister is, you harlot.
いや、それはうちの妹もいますし。
God damn,
有機
Nene.
ですよ。
Oh, we're spending a lot of time around this specific group of girls. So you don't have your eye on them? Like, I'm just helping my sister, god damn it. Like, yes, there is a possibility that Reiji could pipe down some high schoolers if he wanted to. But that's not what I'm going for here. Now, maybe I replay this game a little bit later and come back for you, Nene, but right now, no. My focus is not on the high schoolers.
そうなの？朽木さんともよくお話ししているみたいだけれど。
Actually, I think I think Toko's unavoidable. I think that's something I do have to go through for the true ending. So maybe we will have to pipe a high schooler at some point. But you know what? It's unavoidable. It's inevitable. It's not my choice.
なぜそこで彼女の名前が出てくるんですか？
私の勘違いかしらね。
She chuckled.
そういえば先ほどトジコ、いや、よそ宮さんがいませんでしたか？
ええ、さっき事件を知らせに来てくれたのよ。
そうでしたか。
今日はこれで終わりかしらね。もう復活祭どころじゃなくなったし。
そうですね。
The forensics had likely finished their sweep of the crime scene. It would have been rather odd to hold the festival under current circumstances.
では俺は帰ります。今のところすることもありませんから。
ええ、お疲れ様です。
I exited the infirmary. Though I could have just gone home, I wanted to check up on Yukari and company first. The cherry trees on campus were in full bloom, painting a pretty picture for my eyes. Sato was taking a stroll beneath their branches.
いや、佐藤さん、
先生。
これから部活会？
いえ、美術部の方に呼ばれまして。
なんだ、あいつら何かするつもりなのか？
自分たちだけで復活祭をすると言っていました。
ああ、なるほどね。
Sounded like they didn't want the holiday to go to waste just because the official festival was cancelled.
俺も美術室に行くつもりだったから一緒に行こうか。
ええ。
おや、珍しい組み合わせだね。
Toko greeted me and Sato when we entered the room.
さっきそこで会ってね。
あとは綴り子が来たらそれ。
まだ来ていないのか？
ええ、文芸部の方を覗いてから来るそうですが。
And right on cue, Tochiko opened the door.
ごめん、お待たせ。これで全員かな。トウコはいないけれど、始めようか。
Man, with that lighting, it really just seems like they're doing some cultish shit. Which, I mean, you could argue something about Easter, but you know, really all lined up like that. Also, yeah, all of them are like hands together in prayer, and Reiji's just like leaning on the table, like, yeah, I am also here. Orderly rows of candles were lined up on one of the tables. The girls took their seats around them and prayed. Since I wasn't particularly familiar with how Christians worshipped, I decided to simply imitate their actions. Fair enough. Meanwhile, they had it down to a T, probably because this was a Catholic school. A solemn silence blanketed the room. Even Tojiko, of all people, could have been mistaken for a devoted nun based on the way she closed her eyes in prayer. She seemed a little listless, but maybe that was related to the reason she'd stayed in the infirmary.
どうしたの先生？
Tojiko glanced at me out of the corner of her eye, hands still clasped in prayer.
なんでもないぞ。
She appeared as fit as a fiddle, making me wonder if my mind had merely been playing tricks on me. The girls eventually finished praying and started cleaning up.
卵使わなかったね。
Toko couldn't hide her disappointment.
せっかく作っていたのにな。
まあ仕方ないさ。あんなことがあってはね。
Toko said that, yet still heaved a disheartened sigh all the same.
ねえ先生、やっぱりこの事件も調べるの？
Tojiko chose that moment to chime in.
どうだろうな。差し当たって無関係だし、依頼も受けていないし。
Even I knew how rich that was coming from the guy who'd been looking over the crime scene earlier.
ね、ほら私って怪奇小説家でしょ？
そうだったのか？
ずっと前から何度も言ってるじゃないのさ。
そう怒るなよ、トジコ。
だからもう話が進まないじゃない。
悪かったよ。でなんだ？
My lighthearted apology had fortunately lifted Tojiko's spirits slightly.
さっきの事件にさ、
そりゃ悪趣味だな。
ほら小説のネタになるかもしれないしさ、前の事件でも役に立ってあげたでしょ？
そう言われてもな。
So essentially she wanted to get a front row seat to this dismemberment case.
だから俺は別に依頼を受けているわけでもないし、無関係だぞ。
だってさ、事件はここで起こったんだよ。許せないじゃない。
こういうことは本来警察に任せておくもんだ。素人が首を突っ込むと危険だからな。
わかったよ。
絶対分かってないだろ、お前。
After finally managing to placate Tojiko, I left and found a bored Toko loitering around outside.
なんだ？
違うよ。画材を買いに行こうか考えていただけさ。
そうか。
本当はトーコと行くつもりだったのだけれどね。
そうだ。彼女の家の場所を知っているか？
トーコの？
今日休んだからな。少々気になって。
それだけ？
それだけ。
トーコは先生のこと嫌っているみたいだからね。
母親はいるだろう。
そうだね。多分いるだろうけれど。
The way Toko said that unsettled me. I almost felt like she was implying something.
何かあるのか？
It's like he had said Toko and her mother didn't get along, come to think of it.
ううん。あまり外野がとやかく言うことではないよ。
お前も来るか？
私が行くと迷惑になるよ。だから行かない。場所は上井草の石神井公園の近くだよ。
Toko proceeded to give me the Mizuhara's address.
ありがとう。
いえ、どういたしまして。それではまた今度。
Toko smiled before turning around and strolling off. So, Shakuji, huh? I wasn't too far from the school. There was a backstreet residential area a few blocks away from the Shakuji Park down Waseda Street. Rows of derelict single-story houses flanked the road from both sides. This is where she lives?
水原さん、いないんですか？
めんどくせえなおい、破っちまおうぜ。
Oh. Some punks were causing a ruckus in front of one of the houses. I instantly hid and observed them. They just said Mizuhara, didn't they? Which meant that it had to be Toko's house.
おい、やめとけ。そんなことしたって金は返ってこねえよ。
ですが兄、間違いなくイルス使ってるっすよ。
Debt collectors? Yeah, I sure don't want to get mixed up in that shit. I held my breath and waited for the two thugs to leave. Didn't seem either of them intended to resort to roughhouse tactics. Eventually they started off, cursing under their breaths. I surveyed the premises and scurried over to the house once I was sure the coast was clear. A faded old nameplate read Mizuhara. So this really is their place. A tiny old US military surplus truck was parked nearby. I knocked on the door despite knowing I was probably just wasting my time.
水原さん。お。
got no response. Real shocker, considering debt collectors had been at the door mere moments ago. All of a sudden, I heard a muffled rustling from behind the door. Guess she's home. I held my breath and tried to get a feel for what was happening in there. Whoever was on the other side was probably spying on me from within.
すみません。トウコさんのことでお。
トウコが
A frail, frightened feminine voice feebly replied.
いえ、そういうわけではありません。
少々お待ちください。
I heard her moving something. She must have barricaded the entrance with a bookcase or something. The door cracked open, revealing the face of the woman I had seen near the art museum in Ueno the other day.
お待たせしました。どうぞ。
失礼します。
I stepped into a modest room. It was clean, which was a generous way of saying she didn't own enough to make a mess. Several bottles were arranged in a corner.
大場女学院の講師をしております。時坂と申します。
どうも。水原美代と申します。トウコの母親です。
Mio bowed deeply.
トウコさんは休まれているんですか？
ええ、自分の部屋で眠っております。
そうですか。いや、実は今日学院でとある事件が起こりましてね。
何があったのでしょうか？
ええ。復活祭に使用する卵があったのですが。
そんな。
Mio was rendered speechless. It didn't surprise me though. Anyone would have reacted that way to the news.
まだ断定はできませんが、殺人事件の可能性もあって捜査をするらしいのですが。
それで何か分かったのです？
いえ、まだ何も。先月も学院では事件がありましたので、ご家庭でも不審者などに警戒を怠らないようお願いしたいのです。何かありましたら警察か学院の方へ連絡をお願いします。
I let myself ease up a little after I finished alerting her, then took another look around.
これは
There were flat pebbles near my feet.
それは白雲母です。
Mio's voice was so quiet that I almost missed it. Like she said, there were several thin plates of crystallized mica? Wait, okay, what was the word? Muscovite. The fuck is muscovite? Let me just look that up for myself here. Muscovite mica. Also called common mica. Is it mica or mica? Mica. Okay, it's mica. Gotcha. I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's mica. So, whatever the fuck that means.
何かに使われるのですか？
ええ、顔料を作っています。
顔料というと着色用のですか？
はい、そうです。雲母だけではなく貝殻や墨、動物の骨などからも作っております。
へえ。
I scanned the room upon hearing that and found several seashells in a corner.
砕いて粉末状にして使うんです。固めれば白木にもなります。
なるほど。いろいろな形にも加工ができるのですね。
ええ。
I stared at the seashells for quite some time.
ああ、それでですか。
Something finally clicked into place for me.
何がでしょう？
以前あなたがトウコさんと一緒に上野の美術館近くにいたのを見たんですよ。
そんなことありません。
Mio anxiously glanced at a nearby sliding door. Toko was probably sleeping behind it.
ということはご覧になったのでしょうか？
Mio timidly spoke up.
あなたとトウコさんが言い争いをしているところ。
そうです。
She hung her head.
申し訳ありません。盗み見るつもりはなかったのですが。
いえ、いいんです。いつものことですから。
Meaning they fight frequently, huh?
すみません。お宅の事情へ立ち入るつもりは全くないのですが。
いえ、こちらこそご迷惑をかけてしまい。
Mio bowed until her back was almost completely arched.
いえ。それでは、トウコさんに友達が心配していたとお伝えください。
I realized staying any longer wouldn't accomplish anything, so I decided to leave. With that, I got up, bowed to Mio, and made my way out. The skies were vermilion by the time I got outside. Alright, where to now? That is a phenomenal question. Wow, there are so many options. I'm thinking we take a trip to Irokashira. The park's cherry blossoms had changed from primroses to Yoshino cherries at some point. I strolled beneath the petals, they waltzed on the wind. Shortly thereafter, I spotted Yukari by the pond.
あら兄さん、
何をしてるんだ？
買い物をしていたのですが、天気が良いので散歩でもと思いまして。
I glanced down at her hands and realized she was indeed carrying a paper bag that appeared to be from the grocer by the station.
今日はお家に帰ってくるのですよね。
最近はいつも帰っているだろう。
そうですが、今日は学院であんなこともありましたし。
ああ、そうか。
True. I did have a habit of not coming home when crime came knocking. Though if anything, it was my office I hadn't seen much of lately. What in the fuck is that? Oh. I instinctively ducked when I suddenly heard an insect buzzing by my ears.
あら、ミツバチですね。
That was not a bee. That was not a bee. I know what bees sound like. That was not a bee. Bees don't go. Bees have a pretty steady buzz to them. That's why they say buzz buzz. They just. I don't know what kind of bees y'all got up in Japan, but if they're going. Fuck, I don't want anything to do with that shit. Ugh. Meanwhile, my sister observed the lone bee flying about without so much as batting an eyelash.
春の陽気に誘われたのでしょうか。
Like, I got no problem with bees. Apparently, these Japanese bees are making fucking weird ass noises. I got a problem with those.
いくらなんでも早くないか。
Man, don't be scared of bees.
そうでもありませんよ。気温によっては梅の花にも寄ってきたりしますし。
Girl, you
そうだ
know
兄
he
さん、
doesn't.
ミツバチの生態について知っていますか？
一度刺したら針が抜けて死ぬってやつか？
それもありますが、働きバチと呼ばれるものはすべてメスなんですよ。
なんだ？男は働かないのか？
ええ、オスバチはただ生殖のためだけに生まれるんです。しかもそれは女王バチの単位生殖によって生み出されているんです。
単位生殖？
受精を必要とせずに卵を産むことです。ミジンコなどもそうですね。一番有名なのは聖母マリアの処女解体でしょうか。
ミツバチと神様が同列か。
それだけ神秘的だということですよ。
You gotta get in.
我が家のオスバチはこのまま帰るのですか？
俺は働きバチだからな。もうしばらくそこらを歩いてから帰るよ。
I retorted tit for tat.
あら、オスバチだってあたりをふらつくのですよ。繁殖期の時は特に。
Her savage counterattack left me floored.
いじめすぎましたか？
Oh no, you killed it,
Yeah.
girl.
今日はうちの女王バチの勝ちだ。
I had no comeback, much as I hated to admit it. Ugh, here I thought I was working. Let's take a trip to the art museum, I guess. I went to the art museum in Ueno. However, I spotted Stella sitting on a bench outside just as I was about to stroll in.
おや、ステラ、
Stella was clutching a pencil and studying the Ueno landscape. She replicated the scenery before in a sketchbook, my words going in one ear and out the other.
へえ、なかなかうまいじゃないか。
Seriously, she seemed like she'd be right at home with Hikari and the gang.
え、書くの好き？
Stella looked up at me.
書く？
いや、俺はいいよ。
I shook my head when Stella offered her pad and pencil.
そう。
Stella contemplated me for a while before abruptly returning to her sketching. She looks pretty lost in her work. Wait, work?
ステラ、仕事は？
Stella snapped out of her reverie and got up.
やっぱり忘れてたか。
忘れてない。
No. Not exactly convincing since she was hightailing it back into the museum and all. So you did forget. No. I went home and had dinner with Yukari.
今日は一日お疲れ様でした。
まあいろいろとあったな。
兄さん、コーヒーは飲まれますか？
なあ、もらおうか。
Got headed for the kitchen. It wasn't long before the savory aroma of roasting coffee beans seeped into the living room.
お待たせいたしました。
ありがとう。そうだ、お前に頼んでおきたいことがあったんだ。
何でしょうか？
Guy looked up after mixing sugar into the coffee.
当時このやつが今日あった事件に興味を示しているようなんだよ。
ああ、そうでしょうね。
Guy nodded.
綴り子でしたらいいネタが見つかったと喜ぶでしょうね。
それじゃあ困るんだよ。お前からそれとなく注意しておいてくれないか。
What a place to break the sentence, you know? To go from one line to the next. That's what worries me. So, you think you could try to kill her? Curiosity? Like... Sometimes, man. Don't tell me that's incredibly subtle foreshadowing. Don't do that to me. Don't you dare. So I look back at the line. So, you think you could try to kill her? Like, damn, Reggie, a bit too forward with it, you know? No, I don't want to turn the title screen. Just want to take a screenshot, you dick.
私が言ったところで聞き入れるとも思いませんけれど、一応伝えておきますね。
ああ、頼む。
I went back to my room and slid into my futon. I heaved a loud sigh. Though I hadn't been asked to handle the case, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe I should ask Uozumi for an update tomorrow. Forensics had probably finished analyzing the chunks of flesh, so I could visit Natsume's clinic in the morning to ask for the results. Man, I really need to learn not to stick my nose where it doesn't belong. Seriously, where do I even get off lecturing Tochiko? I held my breath as I hid under the covers. Professor Tokisaka had been in the adjoining room until just a minute ago. Part of me wondered what he and Mother had discussed, though even I could tell it had been about me, obviously. I didn't actually hate Professor Tokisaka. Describing my feelings for him was complicated, to say the least. It wasn't like I considered him a bad person, but it tore my heart asunder to see him and Toko together. My Toko. She was mine and mine alone. Yeah, but you're straight, right? Professor Tokisaka was trying to steal her from me. Toko couldn't be allowed to let a man sway her. She couldn't. She just couldn't. And depending on others didn't suit her. I could never accept her living the way Mother did. Never. Mother was a weak woman at heart. Though she'd raised me on her own, she always clung to the shadows of one man after the next, perhaps because I had no father. Mother was beautiful. She possessed the purity of a young girl, to an extent that even I, her own daughter, had a hard time believing she'd ever had a child. I despised her. I despised seeing her kissing up to men. I despised how she acted like she cared so much about me. I despised every little gesture, twitch she made. I loathed her. Mother didn't see me for who I was either. She simply pretended she did. She merely adopted the mask of a mother in fear of what others would think. Her words had no love behind them. Thus they never reached my own heart. Mother hated me and I hated her in turn. Hence why I knew, just knew, that everything I hated must have hated me as well. I hated school. It was stifling being stuffed in that cramped space with so many others. I hated my friends. They watched my actions like hawks and saw fit to stick their noses into my business. I hated the world. It bound and persecuted me with spiked fetters. There was only one thing I loved. My Toko. Yeah, but you're straight, right? She was mine. Mine alone. She was everything to me. I was the only one she could ever be allowed to depend on, and in turn she was the only one I could ever allow myself to rely on. For we were one and the same, united in mind and body. And yet, everyone was trying to tear us apart. Even though all I wanted was to become Toko. Whoa, was to become? Was to become? Girl? Ayo? That's more than just, that's extra. Even though Toko was the ideal I constantly strove toward, for I would become Toko. homegirl, I'm gonna need you to chill the fuck out. God damn. Canto 11, The Ring. Oh god. Don't watch the videotape. Don't do it.
雨が降った日
Oh
は
Jesus.
外へ出かけたくなる。お気に入りの傘をさしてゴム長を履いて、アジサイとカタツムリの開口を眺め、水たまりに映る曇り空を見下ろして、すべてを書き残しておきたくなる幸せな時間。
I see. Rose was summoned to the MPD first thing in the morning. This has become a common occurrence ever since he'd been assigned to the CID. In his line of work, there weren't many crimes that happened during typical work hours. Most of them either occurred in the dead of night, at the crack of dawn, or during breaks.
Oh, what's got on?
Ozumi addressed one of his coworkers, who was rubbing his eyes either because he'd just got near himself or had been on the night shift and headed for his desk.
魚住、会議室で呼んでいたぞ。
会議室だ？
昨日もバラバラが見つかっただろう。いよいよ捜査本部を作って本格的にやるみたいだぜ。本庁の課長補佐が指揮するってよ。
わざわざ来るのか？どうせお勉強しかしてないような若造だろ。
The long-held outlook of Yozumi is that having people like that in charge merely dragged the investigation down.
それがな、何年か前にこっちで難事件を解決したとかで、2年前の警察庁設立時に向こうに行ったって話だぜ。
Yozumi's heart sank when he heard that. After all, there was only one man he knew who fit that bill.
あいつか。
Oh, that ass.
ああ、それとお前さん宛てに電話があったぞ。時坂って人から。
レイジが？はは。あの野郎も嗅ぎ回るつもり
Son of a bitch. Yozumi would have to go to the Takashiro clinic shortly to get the forensics files. And so he decided to summon Reiji there, figuring that case was what his old friend wanted to ask about anyhow. Yozumi mulled over whether the two knew each other, but he couldn't recall a single time they'd been in the same room.
奴が入庁したのはレイジが辞めてからだったか。
Instead, he was sure they'd at least seen each other on occasion. Yozumi headed for the conference room, pondering if it was really worth it to get Reiji involved with this mess all the while. I went to Takadana Baba after Yozumi called me back. From him, I learned that they'd officially established a task force to investigate the new dismemberment murders. Not only that, but apparently the police superintendent in charge of said force will be coming to the clinic to hear the forensic results as well.
おや、時坂はん、お久しぶりですな。
Natsume popped out of the clinic wearing her traditional winter
お
coat.
はようございます、夏目さん。ね
おはようさ。魚住はんたちとは一緒ちゃいますの？
え、俺は自宅から直接来ましたからね。
おいなら、時坂はんには先に説明しといた方がええのかもしれまへんな。
ああ、そうだったんですか。
今日は新しい管理官の顔合わせっちゅうこともあるみたいだぜ。おいしょ、時坂はん。